A step parenting expert, Chris Burns.
Women's mindset coach and stepmom, Chris Burns.
Welcome to the Step Parent Podcast. Welcome back to the Step Parent Podcast. And if you're new here, hello, I'm really glad that you found your way here. Please make sure that you do hit follow or subscribe so you don't miss weekly episodes, because this space is built specifically for step parents and blended families who are done pretending that this is easy or it just takes time. And if you're a long-time listener, thank you for coming back to this space. Thank you for trusting this space. I'm grateful that you're here. So let's dive into this week's conversation. This one is on Easter, a time where you can all unravel your shit in a blended family. Easter can look so different from the outside. Chalky eggs, long weekends, family lunches, photos that make it seem like everyone is connected and calm. But if you're a step parent or living inside a blended family, Easter can quietly disrupt things. It becomes one of the most emotionally loaded times of the year, like Christmas. It's not about the chocolate eggs. It's about transitions, shared care schedules, who has the kids and who doesn't, whose traditions matter, where you're expected to show up and where you're expected to stay quiet, and where you're expected to swallow your feelings and be understanding. And if Easter brings up grief, resentment, anxiety, jealousy, or comparison, that low-level ache of feeling like something's wrong with you can actually start to compound over time. And it happens when holidays shine a spotlight on the parts of blended family life that is rarely named out loud. And it's a bit of a loss alongside love, and that reality can deeply hurt at times, right? One of the hardest truths for step parents is that you're often expected to be endlessly flexible by having very little actual control. You might not have the kids on Easter Sunday, or you might actually be sharing the day, or you might be navigating multiple households, maybe even managing multiple expectations, but it really just raises and highlights the issue of the emotional climate and the change. And rather than you being able to name it effectively and saying, this hurts, this feels heavy, you start being critical on yourself. You start sabotaging yourself. So what that can actually look like is you start saying you need to be better, you need to be more mature, your feelings aren't important, your feelings aren't relevant right now, and that just keeps you small. Right? That just keeps you small. It shrinks down your power. And the more that we do this, the more often we have that brick wall of I'm not enough, the more intense that emotion is displayed when you're triggered. Okay, quick ad break, because if you're listening to this and thinking, I cannot keep navigating my blended family life like this, I want you to hear this clearly. Change doesn't take years when you have the right support. I have seen men and women flip the switch in as little as 2 sessions when they stop managing everyone else and start leading themselves with emotional intelligence, boundaries, and clarity. And that is why I am opening spots in my 6-week intensive. This is focused mentorship designed to shift your blended family dynamic quickly. In 6 weeks, we work on leadership, regulation, communication, and self-trust so you can stop shrinking and start taking up space in your own life and relationship. If this resonates, apply via my website. You'll be guided through whether this is an aligned fit for us both. I don't work with everyone. I work with people who actually want change and are ready for real results. So if you are done sitting in victimhood and ready to take action, this 6-week intensive is a space just for you. Let's get back to today's episode. Okay, so Easter has a way of activating old wounds around abandonment, rejection, not being chosen, and comparison, especially when you're watching traditions play out that you don't actually fully belong to. And most step parents don't lash out. They don't cause scenes. They overfunction, and they want to keep the peace. So they make it work for everyone else while slowly disconnecting from the self, and keeping the peace by abandoning yourself isn't emotional intelligence, it's self-betrayal. And it always leaks out eventually as resentment, shutdown, irritability, emotional distance, or that sense of numbness that you can't quite explain. And here's the part that I want you to hear clearly. East doesn't require you to be quieter, it requires clarity, and clarity comes from leadership. And that's not about dominance or control, that's about transparency and boundaries, right? When Easter feels chaotic or painful, it is rarely about the kids, and it is almost always about a lack of clear communication, a lack of expectations being set early enough, a lack of someone leading the logistics and the emotional load, and step parents fill that gap the most. You are allowed to ask what Easter looks like in your household. You are allowed to ask what traditions you're building in your own home, and you are allowed to ask how your relationship is being protected during emotionally charged times. Those are not selfish questions, they are stabilizing ones. And another truth that we need to name is that Easter does not need to look traditional to be meaningful. You do not need to compete with another household or replicate someone else's rituals or prove anything to anyone to be doing it right. Children don't need perfection. They need regulated adults. They need emotional safety, and that includes you, which means part of this work is learning to grieve that what isn't possible without letting that grief harden into bitterness. Part of the work is accepting that blended families hold both love and loss at the same time. And part of this work is choosing one thing you control, one ritual, one moment, one anchor that belongs to you and your home, instead of trying to make the entire weekend feel okay. And comparison will try to steal that from you, because comparison is not truth. It is a trauma response, and it will rob you of your presence every single time. So if Easter is coming and you already feel your body tightening or your mind spiraling, here's what I want you to do first. Name what this time brings up for you. Before the weekend arrives, not during it, because awareness reduces emotional charge. Second, stop outsourcing your needs and hoping someone else will magically meet them. Resentment is information. Use it. Third, have a conversation early. Clarity before the weekend will save you from emotional fallout, especially in your relationship. Fourth, create one grounded ritual you control so your nervous system has something to anchor to. And fifth, lead yourself first. Regulation over reaction, boundaries over bitterness, clarity over chaos, because this is where your power actually lives. And if Easter is unfolding and you feel yourself getting reactive, tight in the chest, snappy, withdrawn, or emotionally charged, here's 5 things that you can actually do in the moment instead of spiraling and exploding. First, I want you to pause the story and regulate the body before you say a word. Reactivity is psychological before it's emotional. So step away, put your feet on the ground, and take 5 slow breaths with long exhales and remind yourself that you are safe right now. Nothing needs to be solved in this moment. The next is naming what's triggering you, not what's happening. Instead of telling yourself this shouldn't be like this, they always do this, get honest. This is bringing up rejection. This is activating feeling unchosen, because when you name the wound, it stops running the show. And delay reaction until regulation. If you feel the urge to confront, explain, or justify, just wait. Just wait. Give yourself space. Responding from regulation always lands differently than reacting from emotion. You don't lose your power by pausing, you reclaim it. Easter in blended families is not hard because you are failing or because your family is broken. It's hard because it requires emotional maturity most people were never taught. And if you are listening to this thinking that you are done surviving holidays like this, know that you don't need to leave the relationship. You do not need to explode, and you do not need to disappear. You need language, tools, and real support. And that is exactly why this space exists, to give you perspective, regulation, and leadership skills so that you can stop feeling like you are the problem and start feeling grounded in who you are and how you show up. As we wrap up this episode, I want you to remember this. You are not too sensitive, you are not asking for too much, and you are not failing because this feels hard. You are leaning and learning how you can lead differently, and that changes everything. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next episode.